spoilers in this video, be sure to order them from today's sponsor, FusionGamingOnline.com. It helps out the channel a lot. Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Jeff, and today we have a new Ravnica Allegiance spoiler video and some super exciting stuff to dive into here. But real quick, if you can, please like and subscribe. It helps support the channel a ton. Alright, let's go ahead and get into these cards. First off, we have a card from yesterday that is finally translated, Consecrate and Consume. Instant speed exiles a target card from the graveyard, and you draw a card, and on the consume side, target player sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. You gain life equal to the power. So we already did this one yesterday, but I just wanted to give the official translation out here. It's awesome. Love it. Here we go. All right, next up we have another dual card here, Carnival and Carnage. So instant speed Carnival deals 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker and 1 damage to that permanent's controller. So first off, this turns on the ability, the Spectacle ability, which is awesome. You have to at least have a creature on the battlefield. It's amazing. With Pestilent Spirit, which gives instant sorcery spells you control have Death Touch. This is a 1 mana way to kill any creature or planeswalker. And so pretty amazing. Pretty amazing there. I definitely think that this will see play. It gives a mono black version to the Pestilent Spirit as well, at least to have something there with it. So I like that a lot. On the Carnage side, Carnage deals 3 damage to target opponent. That player discards 2 cards. So 4 mana does 3 damage and makes him discard. I actually like that quite a bit. I'm interested to see if it'll see play for that side. It is a way to finish out the game. So I definitely think it will. People will still use it for that side. I don't know. It's a little bit interesting. We'll have to see. I think that even the discard deck has a little bit more value that way too, because you can do quite a bit of damage all of a sudden. If you're making them discard 2 cards, you have like 1 discard outlet like the Fel Spectre out. You can end up doing quite a bit of damage for. I mean, it's 7 damage for 4 mana. That's not too bad at all. I mean, you have to have the right scenario, but it's pretty good. Next up, we have High Alert. 1 white and a blue enchantment. And each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have Defender. So basically, Arcades on an enchantment now. And you can pay 2 a white and a blue to untap target creature. So that is awesome. That is very good. I mean, it's already an amazing card on Arcades, and this way there's a cheap way to make it happen, and you can now have a pretty legitimate budget deck, I believe, around Defenders, because the Defenders are just big creatures, and as long as you can protect your enchantments or, you know, draw into enough of these guys, I think you have a really legitimate deck in just blue and white, even if you wanted to. So I think that this is a very good card. We'll see if it actually sees anything in the meta. I kind of doubt it's going to be that good, but this will definitely give a lot of budget decks up to a 2-tier level deck. The other thing too is that this also just lets your creatures with big toughness do a lot of damage as well. So you don't have to just have it be based around defenders. So there's still value even in just doing this. So like the invert Zuko deck that I did the other day just gets so much better because we don't have to have the invert. We have another copy of that. So this actually can be very good. Alright, Cry of the Canarium. 1 and 2 black sorcery. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Exile all creatures in all graveyards that were put there from the battlefield this turn. If a creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So first off, this is amazing for against Golgari. You know, it's a golden demise that doesn't fill their graveyard for them, which is great. It also just exiles anything else that went there beforehand. So that's kind of interesting. I feel like what that does is if you decide to go ahead and swing in with any creatures that you have to try to clear the board and they block, then you can exile anything that they might have chump blocked or, you know, blocked there. You can then exile everything, which helps out with the Kaya. I feel like there's a lot of exile cards here that if your whole game plan is to make sure you have enough stuff for Kaya to her ultimate ability to, you know, do damage for every exiled card that opponent controls. then this actually is really, really good for that deck. Otherwise, I think it is as good as a Golden Demise, of course. It's not a one-sided one, but at least gets to exile a lot of stuff, which is useful in certain matchups. All right, so next up we have Guardian Project. This translation from MTG Goldfish, thank you. It's a 3 in green, so 4 converted mana cost enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as a creature you control or a creature in your graveyard, draw a card. So this would be a whole lot better if it didn't have this the last part, or a creature card in your graveyard. But otherwise, this can be played in a singleton type of thing, or if you just haven't played certain creatures, all of a sudden you have value. The issue is that you're spending your turn 4 to make that happen. So this is one of those like pretty good 4-mana do nothing enchantments that I think will see play in a lot of janky type decks. I don't think it'll ever see play in a main thing, just because we already have Beast Whisper, or Beast Whisper, that draws a card for each creature that enters the battlefield. And so. Yeah, or it's whenever it's cast, I think. But yeah, so I don't think that this will actually see a whole lot of play. At least I don't think I don't like it as much as other cards already in the format. I think that it has some value. There's some cool things that can happen. Yeah, I don't know. That's my thoughts. I like it. It's not amazing though. All right, now this is a card that is amazing and is pretty insane. All right, so Rampage of the Clans, 3 in a green, instant speed, destroy all artifacts and enchantments. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller creates a 3/3 green centaur creature token. So this card is okay, I think, if you're trying to blow up your opponent's enchantments and stuff, and there are a lot of decks that are doing some things like that. But where I like this is if you just have a deck that's built around like Fountain of Renewals, a bunch of really, really cheap artifacts and enchantments, and then all of a sudden you play this on your opponent's end step, create like 10 3/3 green centaur creature tokens, and then swing in the next turn and maybe like pump them with a Pride of Conquerors or something like that. Just, oh, that's broken. Like, that is so cool, especially for 4 mana. It's not that difficult to get up to it, where you actually can fill up your board. If you have multiple of these, you can at least get creatures out by, end of turn 4, end of their turn on turn 4. You can create a bunch of blockers all of a sudden, and I think that this actually creates a very scary deck. And so I think it is legitimate. The biggest issue with this deck that you would see is that you have to have the Rampage of the Clans to make it worthwhile. So I'm not sure if it'd be consistent or like top tier deck, but I think this is a very decent tier 2 deck already. And just any enchantment that we get that's in that 1 to 2 mana slot that will be able to make it explosive, be able to make them draw cards, anything like that, will make this just so much better already. So I like it a lot. Right, next up we have Frilled Mystic, 2 green, 2 blue, elf lizard wizard, and they printed something with lizard wizard. That just makes me so happy. All right, and it has flash. Whenever it enters a battlefield, you may counter target spell, and it's still a 3/2 body. Amazing. It's definitely going to see play just because the Bant deck already has a lot of stuff that it's trying to do like that. And not only that, but it has this gives the Bant deck, like Dovin, gets a little bit better with his +1 ability, where he gets a loyalty counter for each time that a creature does damage. This way you can be countering and it's still putting stuff onto the battlefield. It still is a 4 mana counter spell, which is pretty expensive to be countering with, but I think it'll see play. I'm not sure if it's going to be in the most optimized decks, but I think that there's some decks that will find value in this card for sure. Next up, we have Electro Dominance, X and 2 red instant. It deals X damage to any target, and then you may cast a card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So on their end step, it is instant speed that you can do this. Let's say that you only have 5 mana up. You cast it, 3 damage to your opponent. Then you have either a Lightning Strike or a Risk Factor or something else that you want to cast. It has to be from your hand, so the risk factor can't be from the graveyard at the time, but you can cast it again. This can be a legitimate like 6, 7 damage spell for fairly cheap. So I mean, even if it was only for 2, so 4 mana, it's 5 damage. I really like it. I mean, you are still having to play stuff from your hand. This actually works well with Experimental Frenzy as well because you can cast it and get some of the value out of your hand as well. So you can cast it from the top of the library and still get the value out of your hand. So again, I like this card a lot. We'll see how much it sees play, but I think the burn decks are already a legitimate game plan, and I could see this being like a 2 of in that deck right now. Next up, Smelt Ward Ignis. 2 converted mana costs for a 2/1 elemental, and it's has 2 and a red, sacrifice Smelt Ward Ignis, gain control of target creature with power 3 or less until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn. Activate this ability only anytime you would cast a sorcery. So this card would be amazing if it was just gain control of any creature, but power 3 or less until end of turn, that's the one thing that makes this like, it's good. You get to at least trade up for the turn. It will get you through with extra points of damage in a burn deck. So I definitely see value in this one. I think there's stuff that's better already. But it actually, I could see play. I think that it is one of those that having that ability on the battlefield on turn 2 makes a lot of decks not want to play their big stuff because, I mean, if you can just gain control of it, or I guess not big stuff because it's only 3 power or less, but I don't know. It's a very interesting card. I think that it will see play here and there because it is a good ability, but it's not broken right now. All right, next up we have Bankrupt in Blood, a 2 converted mana cost sorcery, 1 in a black. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice 2 creatures, draw 3 cards. So I really like this card in the decks that are wanting to sacrifice a bunch of creatures. If you're already planning on pinging in for damage with those creatures, doing some extra stuff, it's amazing. It helps you draw into more of the combo pieces you're wanting. Make sure you're filling your hand up so you can have more creatures to sacrifice. So I like this a lot. I think that it's good. It is limited in that you have to be playing that style of deck, you know, Goblin Instigators, something like that, to be playing around that idea. But it is good. It's really good, and I think it'll definitely see play. All right, so next up we have Biogenic Upgrade, 6 converted mana cost, 4 and 2 green, sorcery, distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures, then double up the number of +1/+1 counters on each of those creatures. So this is almost like Gear Hulk with a a snake out, that whole combo from the last set. With this, I really like this card. I think that it is the way that you'll probably combo off with for Simic Ascendancy, because if you have a creature like Zagana or any other thing that just has a ton of counters already, you can just dump this on there and create, you know, about, I would say you could probably create about 10 counters in one turn for 6 mana, which if your game is a Simic Ascendancy plan, that's awesome. If your plan is just to be creating big creatures and swinging in, this is still awesome. So it creates 2 win conditions in one, and it's already in the colors, it's already there. So I like the card with Simic Ascendancy. Just by itself, if you weren't playing along that plan at all, it still creates enough power that, I mean, it can create 6 power on one creature that's, you know, permanent there. So that's definitely good. If you already are playing around the counters in general, you can double up the power of 3 creatures. Yeah, it's still good. It's still good. I mean, the hardest part is its converted mana cost. It's really expensive, but overall, I think it'll definitely see play. All right, next up, Blade Juggler, 5 converted mana cost, Human Rogue, 3/2, and it has Spectacle of 3, so 2 and a black, and when it enters battlefield, it deals 1 damage to you, and you draw a card. So it lets you draw a card. I think this is definitely a good card in Limited. I don't think it's better than Dusk Legion Zealot yet, because it just, the whole point is that you want to be getting those draws off early. You don't really want to be damaging yourself like on turn 5. Around that point, you don't always like it. I wonder if there's going to be ability that every time that you are dealt damage, something happens. because I feel like there's a lot of these still like specifically do damage to you rather than lose life. And so I'm interested to see what happens there. The one thing to remember too is that other players playing the spectacle type cards get these abilities every time that you do damage to yourself. And so I've been seeing that a lot with these spectacle cards right now. And I'm interested to see if there's like a lot of instant speed type of stuff you can do. We already have light up the stage. And so, I mean, turning on their light up the stages if you're playing in a mirror matchup can be pretty bad. I'm interested to see exactly what what the meta actually looks like once we have all the cards out. Speaking of having new cards out, I just barely updated or refreshed, and we have 4 new cards. All right, so these are brand new. So I'm reading these as I'm talking right now. So Angelic Exaltation, 3 and a white enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Very interesting. Um, Basically, you get the power. I mean, as long as you have one thing with trample, this gets the power of everything else that you would have swung in anyway. I guess it's only equal to the number of creatures you control rather than like their power or whatever. So it's a very interesting card. I like it. This would be broken with Grun. Like if you just built a big deck with Grun already, and then he doubles up his power after this, like, oh, that would be really fun. That would actually be a really fun deck. I'm not sure that this is a broken card, but at the same time, with the flyers that we have, like if you just have like a Healer's Hawk and a massive board, all of a sudden it's amazing. So this could already see play as a one of like in the white weenie deck, just to have play like swing in with whatever evasive creature you have and finish out the game. Yeah, so I think this is actually a really good card. All right, next up we have a bunch of rares. So starting up with Grasping Thrall, 3 and white and a black, so 5 converted mana cost Thrall. I don't know what a Thrall is, but it looks like that apparently. And it's a 3/3, has flying. When Grasping Thrall enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to each opponent, and you gain 2 life. That's awesome. I think it's good. It's kind of like the I mean it's not amazing just as a 5-drop. Like there's so many amazing 5-drops right now, but this is amazing for limited. I think it's actually going to see quite a bit of play. You know, it does 2 damage to opponent, you gain the life back, then you have a evasive creature. So definitely going to see play in limited. Outside of that, I don't know if there's going to be like a Thrall deck coming sometime, but I don't think so. Next up, we have Titanic Brawl. 1 and a green, instant speed. This spell costs 1 less, so just a green mana. If it targets a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. That's pretty good. I mean, it's a prey upon that already costs 1 less. I mean, I think that there's already cards out there that does this, so it'll be good in limited. It'll be one of those like it gets even better if you're playing around that synergy. Otherwise, it still lets you fight stuff. Yeah, it's okay. All right, and Quench. 1 and a blue, instant, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. So this is basically Spell Pierce, but for creatures as well. And I actually think it'll see play. Because instead of having to play Negate and Essence Scatter for the opponent, you can have a 2-mana spell that will counter pretty much everything in the early game, which is what those cards are there for anyway right now. That I think this actually legitimately sees play to counter a lot of creature decks, as well as just pretty much everything in the early game. Like up until like turn 4 or 5, you can typically counter stuff each turn, even with the Spell Pierce ability. That's one of the things I kept noticing with Spell Pierce is that, man, it is actually so good, because a lot of people are trying to play on a curve, especially with creature decks. They typically want to play on a curve, if you can just get the right thing countered, even if they were playing something cheap on the first play and then something expensive later on, you can either just make it harder for them to make that first thing actually play. They won't be able to play the next thing, or you just get a counter the second thing. Anyway, I like this card a lot. I definitely think I'll see play. I'm kind of frustrated that it's in the format because I don't like playing up against control, but it's really good. All right, and now we have Burning Tree Vandal. 2 and a red, human rogue, 2/1. More commons here. It has Riot, so it can enter with haste or have a +1/+1 counter. And whenever it attacks, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. That's actually really good. So hastily, you can kind of filter through your hand a little bit for 3 mana. at the same time, if you just make it bigger, you can keep doing that each turn. I think this will definitely see play. It's great in limited. I'm actually not sure. This actually might even see play in standard. Just the fact that it is, I guess, a little expensive, but on turn 3 you can swing in with a 2/1 hastily, and be filtering through your draws. Like if you have too many lands or anything like that, you can just kind of start filtering through. I could see this seeing play. I'm not positive though. It's an interesting card. So let me know what you guys think of that one down in the comments below. All right, well, I just refreshed again and no new cards right now, so that's it for today. But we had so many good stuff, good cards today. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, all that stuff. Put down in the comments what your favorite, like the most broken card is right now. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much, and bye-bye.